Welcome again, CSCI-150 students. This is the first of two recordings on reading data from an input file. In the first one, we're gonna just use any text file into a Python program. And then in a coming recording, we're gonna do reading data from CSV files, comma-separated values files, which are pretty common format for storing data, CSV files. We're also going to see how what that entails to read data from such files into parallel lists. So this is the first of the two. We're just going to do reading from a text file. Here's my program. My program is called file reading. It resides in some folder. And the text file that I want to read is this. Just got a bunch of names that are separated by spaces. Could be a wide space as in a regular space, could be a new line like here, could be a tab, could be whatever you want. It's a collection of different ways to separate the names, but nevertheless they're all names. And my job is to read those names eventually into a list such that my list contains the different names without the spaces. One thing you want to keep in mind with reading files, and this part of Python isn't really very clear in Zybook, file reading, CSV file reading, as well as file writing. So you'll find those videos to be much more applicable to your day-to-day learning of that portion of the course this semester. So the one thing you need to note is that the file and the text file that you're reading should reside in the same folder. That is the one thing that you need to keep in mind. Otherwise, you're going to have to write not just the file name that you want to read, you're going to have to figure out a long path for it, which is not advisable. So there are four major steps to reading a file. The first one is to open the file, and to do that you call the function open. You give it a file name. This is the first parameter. In this case, the name of my file is right here. It's data.txt. Sometimes Windows hides extensions, so you might see something like this instead. You still need to know the extension of the file, because in Microsoft Windows, everything has an extension. So if you can't see it, right click on it, properties, and it should tell you what kind of an extension it has somewhere. It says here .txt. Okay, so even if you don't see the extension, there should be an extension. So that the name of the file is data.txt. Because it's in the same folder, I don't need to provide a path. Otherwise, you might have to say something C / desktop, and then write the whole path, which would make it problematic for somebody else to get your code and run it on their machines. Anyhow, the next parameter would be, what do you want to open the file for? Do you want to read from it, or do you want to write to it? And in this case, I'm going to say R, meaning that I want to read from the file. This is the first step. Now, once I do that, I now have like a program version of my file, which will allow me to access the information. The easiest way to get the information from a file is just to say file.read. This next step will read the content of the file, which what you see over here, as a single string into a variable that I've called file data string. So the content will be read as a string. And then once you've got it as a string, you can easily now, just like we learned before, split that string on white spaces to get a list of the content. So I'm going to run the file now, or run the program, just to show you what's going to happen here. Okay. And this is the content of the file printed from this statement. It prints the contents of the file as is. And then this is the student list after I've split it. Basically gives me all the information. And just for completeness, I'm going to show you this in debug mode again. Stop the program, clear, start here, run in debug mode, step over. This is the, as we said, think of it as like a variable representing the file in your program. And then you use method read on that variable to read the contents. So now these are the contents of the file. They've been read into the variable string file data string over here. Step over, it's going to print the contents. Now I'm going to take that and split it on spaces. So the student list will contain all of that with the names inside your list. And then when you're done, the last thing you need to do is to close the file. It's not the end of the world if you don't close the file when you're reading, but it causes problems if you try to run the program again and you haven't closed it. It causes issues. It's much more problematic when you try to write to a file without closing. So I will stop here, and we will see you back again with another recording on file reading that focuses on reading CSV files, comma separated values into parallel lists. So stay tuned for more, and thank you.